The desert wind howled across the strange purple rocks as Dr. Alex Rivera wiped sweat from his forehead. He had been digging in this alien dirt for 3 months now, and every day brought new mysteries. The planet they called New Hope was supposed to be empty, just another dead world floating in space. But the massive stone structures rising from the ground told a different story. "Hey Alex, come look at this," shouted his teammate Jake from across the dig site. Jake was pointing at a wall, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the afternoon light. The symbols were unlike anything they had seen before, not carved into the stone, but somehow growing from it like living things. Alex walked over, his boots crunching on the rocky ground. The team had been finding pieces of this ancient city for weeks, but this wall was different. It was perfectly smooth, almost like glass, and the symbols moved and shifted when you looked at them directly. "This is incredible," Alex whispered, running his hand along the surface. "These aren't just decorations, there's some kind of technology." The rest of his team gathered around. There was Jake, the young engineer who could fix anything. Lisa, the linguist who spoke 12 languages and was trying to learn this alien one. And old Tom, the security expert who always worried about danger but never backed down from adventure. "Should we touch it?" Lisa asked, pulling out her tablet to record everything. "The sensors aren't picking up any harmful radiation," Tom said, checking his equipment, "but that doesn't mean it's safe." Alex studied the wall more carefully. The symbols seemed to be arranged in patterns, almost like a puzzle waiting to be solved. He had spent his whole life studying ancient civilizations, but this was beyond anything humans had ever built. The precision was perfect, the technology was advanced, and yet it felt old, really old. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a section where the symbols formed a clear pattern. "This looks like some kind of control panel." Without thinking, Alex pressed his palm against the center of the pattern. The moment his skin touched the smooth surface, everything changed. The wall erupted in brilliant blue light. The symbols raced across the surface like water, and a deep humming sound filled the air. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate, and suddenly, transparent barriers of pure energy shot up from the ground all around them. "What did you do?" Jake yelled over the noise. "I don't know," Alex shouted back, pulling his hand away from the wall. But it was too late. The barriers had formed a perfect circle around the entire dig site, trapping them inside like animals in a cage. Tom immediately pulled out his radio. "Base camp, this is Tom. We have a situation here. Some kind of energy field has us trapped. Do you copy?" Nothing but static came back. "The barriers are blocking our signals," Lisa said, running her scanner along the glowing wall of energy. "We're completely cut off." For the next hour, they tried everything they could think of. They pushed against the barriers, tried to dig under them, even threw rocks at them. Nothing worked. The energy walls were solid as steel but clear as glass. They could see out, but they couldn't get out. "There has to be a way to turn this off," Alex said, studying the wall where it all started. "I activated it somehow. There must be a way to deactivate it." That's when they heard the footsteps. They came from underground, echoing through hidden tunnels beneath the ancient city. Slow, deliberate, and getting closer. The team huddled together in the center of their energy prison, watching and waiting. "How many do you think there are?" Jake whispered. Tom replied, his hand moving to the weapon on his belt. "Listen." The footsteps stopped. For a moment, everything was silent except for the humming of the energy barriers. Then, sections of the ground began to slide away, revealing hidden passages that had been invisible just moments before. They emerged like ghosts from the depths of the earth. Tall figures in dark armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their faces were hidden behind masks that looked like works of art, decorated with the same glowing symbols that covered the walls. There were 6 of them, moving with the fluid grace of trained fighters. But it was the 7th figure that made Alex's heart stop. That she was clearly their leader, taller than the others. Her armor was more elaborate, covered in intricate patterns that pulsed with soft light. But it was the weapon in her hand that caught his attention, a long spear that crackled with energy, its tip glowing like a captured star. The leader stepped forward and spoke in a voice that was both musical and commanding. The words were in a language Alex didn't recognize, but the tone was clear enough. They were angry. "I think we're in trouble," Lisa whispered. The leader raised her spear and pointed it directly at Alex. She spoke again, louder this time, and the other figures spread out to surround the trapped humans. "I don't think she's happy that we triggered their security system," Alex said, his mind racing. "This must be some kind of sacred site." The leader tilted her head, as if studying him. Then, without warning, she drew back her arm and hurled the spear straight at his chest. Time seemed to slow down. Alex watched the weapon spinning through the air toward him, its energy tip leaving a trail of light. In that moment, he thought about his life, his work, all the ancient mysteries he would never solve. But something deep inside him refused to give up. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was luck, or maybe it was all those years of quick reflexes, developed from dodging falling rocks in dangerous dig sites. Whatever it was, Alex moved. His hand shot out and grabbed the spear's shaft just inches from his chest. The weapon was warm and seemed to pulse with life, but it didn't hurt him. Instead, it felt strangely familiar, like shaking hands with an old friend. The silence that followed was deafening. The armored figures stood frozen, staring at him in what could only be shock. Their leader took a step back, her posture changing, from aggressive to something that looked almost like respect. She spoke again, but this time her voice was softer, almost reverent. The other figures dropped to one knee, their heads bowed. "What just happened?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex looked down at the spear in his hands. It was beautiful, covered in symbols that seemed to tell a story. As he watched, some of the symbols began to glow brighter, and suddenly he could understand them. "Challenge accepted," he read aloud, the words somehow appearing in his mind. "By the old laws, by the ancient ways, the debt is binding." The leader stepped forward again, but this time she removed her mask. Underneath was a face that was both alien and strangely familiar. Her skin had a slight blue tint and was marked with the same glowing patterns that covered her armor. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, and they held an intelligence that was both ancient and sharp. She spoke again, and this time Alex understood her words perfectly. "You have caught my spear in honorable combat," she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. "By the laws of my people, I am bound to serve you until the debt is paid or the bond is broken." "I'm sorry, what?" Alex asked, still holding the spear. "You are now my master," she continued, "and I am your warrior. This is the way it has always been." Alex looked around at his team, who were staring at him with expressions of complete confusion. Then he looked back at the alien warrior who had just declared herself his servant. "I think," he said slowly, "we're not in Kansas anymore." The leader, his warrior, apparently gestured to the other figures, who immediately began deactivating the energy barriers. As the glowing walls disappeared, she turned back to Alex. "I am Kirillin of the Seventh House, guardian of the sacred temples, keeper of the ancient ways. You have proven yourself worthy in combat. What would you have me do, master?" Alex looked down at the spear in his hands, then back at the woman, who had just changed his life forever. Somewhere in the distance he could hear his radio crackling back to life as their signals were no longer blocked. "Well," he said, trying to process everything that had just happened, "I guess we need to talk." The underground city was nothing like Alex had imagined. As Kirillin led them through massive tunnels carved from living rock, he couldn't help but stare at everything around him. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from within. The stone itself, strange plants with silver leaves grew in carefully tended gardens, and the air smelled like rain and something sweet he couldn't identify. "This place is incredible," Lisa whispered, her eyes wide as she tried to record everything with her tablet. "How long has this been here?" "Longer than your people have walked upright," Kirillin replied without looking back. Her voice carried an edge that made it clear she wasn't trying to be friendly. Jake stumbled as they walked down a set of stairs that seemed to spiral endlessly downward. "Are we going to the center of the planet or something?" "The council chamber lies at the heart of our city," Kirillin explained. "You will stand before the elders and they will decide your fate." "Our fate?" Tom asked, his hand still resting on his weapon. "What's that supposed to mean?" Kirillin stopped walking and turned to face them. In the strange light of the tunnels, her alien features looked both beautiful and dangerous. "You have desecrated our most sacred site. Under normal circumstances, the penalty would be death." "Death?" Alex nearly choked on the word. "We didn't know it was sacred. We thought this planet was empty." "Ignorance is not an excuse," she replied coldly. "But you have caught my spear in honorable combat. This changes things." They continued walking in uncomfortable silence. Alex found himself studying Kirillin as she moved ahead of them. She was definitely not human, but she wasn't so different either. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, with those strange glowing patterns on her skin that seemed to shift and change like living tattoos. Her armor looked ancient but incredibly advanced, and she moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "Can I ask you something?" Alex said, catching up to walk beside her. She glanced at him with those large, dark eyes. "You may ask, I may not answer. What exactly happened back there with the spear? I mean..." Kirillin was quiet for so long that Alex thought she wasn't going to respond. Finally, she spoke. Among my people, there is an ancient law. If a warrior throws their spear in combat, and their opponent catches it, that opponent has proven themselves worthy of respect. The warrior must serve them until the debt is paid. Serve them how? However they command, she said, and Alex could hear the bitterness in her voice. I am bound to obey your orders, to fight your battles, to protect your life with my own. This is the way it has always been. Alex stopped walking. That's insane. I don't want anyone to serve me. I don't want to own another person. You do not own me, Kirillin snapped, turning to face him. I am not property. I am a warrior bound by honor and ancient law. There is a difference. Is there? Alex asked. Because it sounds like the same thing to me. For a moment, something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe, or confusion, but it was gone so quickly that Alex wasn't sure he had seen it at all. They reached the council chamber just as Alex was beginning to think they would walk forever. The room was enormous, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Ancient stone seats were arranged in a circle, and sitting in them were the strangest beings Alex had ever seen. The elders looked like Kirillin's people, but older, much older. Their skin had a translucent quality, and the glowing patterns covered their entire body. Some of them had additional arms, others had eyes that were completely white. One of them seemed to be made partially of the same living stone that formed the walls. Approach, said the one who appeared to be their leader. His voice echoed strangely in the vast chamber. Alex and his team walked to the center of the circle, with Kirillin walking slightly behind them. Alex noticed that she kept her head down, which seemed wrong for someone who had been so confident before. I am Elder Thanema, the leader continued. We have watched your kind for many years, studying you from afar. You are curious creatures, always digging, always searching, always disturbing things that should be left alone. We're archaeologists, Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. We study the past to understand the present, and in doing so, you triggered our most ancient defenses. Another elder spoke up. This one had 4 arms and skin that looked like polished metal. You entered the Temple of First Light, without permission, without respect, without understanding. We didn't know, Lisa said. Our scans showed this planet was uninhabited, because we chose to remain hidden, Elder Thanema replied. We are the last of our people, the survivors of a great war that destroyed our homeworld. We came here seeking peace, and we found it by staying invisible to the rest of the galaxy. Until you came, the metal-skinned elder added. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to your homeworld? It was burned to ash by an enemy that knows no mercy, Thanema said, his ancient eyes filled with sadness. We are all that remains of a civilization that once spanned 100 worlds. I'm sorry, Alex said, and he meant it. But we're not your enemies. We're just scientists trying to learn. And yet one of you has claimed our greatest warrior. A third elder spoke. This one was the strangest yet. Her body seemed to be made partially of living crystal that refracted the light into rainbow patterns. Kirillin of the 7th House has never been defeated in combat. She has led our people through countless battles and kept our secrets safe for decades. And now she belongs to a human who stumbled into our world by accident. I don't want her to belong to me, Alex protested. This whole situation is crazy. Can't we just forget this happened and go our separate ways? The crystalline elder laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. The laws that bind us are older than your entire species. Human, they cannot be broken simply because you find them inconvenient. But surely there's some way, Alex began. There is no way, Kirillin interrupted, speaking for the first time since they had entered the chamber. The law is clear. I threw my spear at you in combat. You caught it. The bond is formed and cannot be broken. What if I just let you go? Alex asked. What if I order you to be free? It doesn't work that way, Elder Thanema explained. The bond can only be broken through death, or through a counter-challenge where Kirillin proves her worth by completing an impossible task, or through the right of release, which requires both parties to agree and involves ... complications. What kind of complications? The elders exchanged glances. The right of release requires a sacrifice from both the bound and the binder. It is dangerous and often fatal. Few attempt it, and fewer survive it. Alex looked at Kirillin, who was still staring at the ground. How do you feel about all this? She looked up at him then, and he was shocked to see anger burning in her eyes. How do I feel? I feel humiliated. I feel trapped. I am a warrior who has protected my people for 30 years, and now I must take orders from someone who doesn't even know how to hold a spear properly. I caught your spear just fine, Alex said, stung by her words. By luck, she shot back. Pure, blind luck. You have no training, no skill, no understanding of what it means to be a warrior, and yet by our ancient laws, you are now my superior. I never asked for this, Alex said. Neither did I, Kirillin replied. Elder Thanema cleared his throat. The situation is unusual, but the law is the law. However, we face a crisis that may require us to be flexible in our thinking. What kind of crisis? Jake asked. 3 days ago, we received distress signals from our hidden colonies on other worlds. The Vortok Empire has found them. They are attacking our people, burning our cities, hunting down the survivors. We believe they are trying to finish what they started when they destroyed our homeworld. The chamber fell silent. Alex could feel the weight of centuries of pain and fear. In that silence, our warriors are spread across the galaxy, trying to defend our scattered people, Thanemar continued. We are outnumbered and outgunned. We need every advantage we can get. And you think we can help? Tom asked. Perhaps, the crystalline elder said. Your people have technologies we do not. And you, Dr. Alex Rivera, have proven yourself capable of understanding our ancient systems. The combination of your knowledge and Kirillin's skills might be exactly what we need. Alex looked around at his team, then back at the elders. What are you asking us to do? Help us save our people, Thanema said simply. Work with Kirillin to locate and activate our ancient defenses on the threatened worlds. In return, we will share our knowledge with your people and ensure your safe return home. And if we refuse, then you will remain here as our guests until this crisis passes, the metal-skinned elder said, which may be a very long time indeed. Alex realized they didn't really have a choice, but looking at Kirillin, he saw something in her expression that hadn't been there before, a tiny spark of hope. All right, he said. We'll help, but I want to make one thing clear. I'm not giving anyone orders. We work together as equals, or we don't work at all. Kirillin looked up at him with surprise. You would treat me as an equal, despite the law. The law says you have to serve me, Alex replied. It doesn't say I have to act like a master. For the first time since they had met, Kirillin almost smiled. The transport ship hummed quietly as it sliced through space toward their first destination. Alex stared out the window at the stars, still trying to process everything that had happened in the past week. One day he was digging up old pottery, and now he was flying across the galaxy with an alien warrior to save an entire civilization. Stop fidgeting, Kirillin said from the pilot's seat. Your nervous energy is distracting. Sorry, Alex replied, though he wasn't really sorry. I've never been in space before. Well, not counting the trip to New Hope, but that was in cryosleep. You humans are strange, she muttered, adjusting some controls on the dashboard. You explore the galaxy, but act surprised when you find it's dangerous. Alex turned to look at her. Over the past few days, he had started to notice things about Kirillin that he had missed during their first encounter. The way she moved with perfect efficiency, never wasting emotion. How her glowing skin patterns changed color based on her mood. Blue when she was calm, purple when she was annoyed, which seemed to be most of the time around him. And how she always checked her weapons at least 3 times before leaving anywhere. Can I ask you something? He said. You ask me many things. I have learned this is your nature. Why do you hate this so much? Working with me, I mean. Kirillin was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than usual. I have been a warrior since I was old enough to hold a blade. I have led armies into battle. I have saved my people countless times. And now I must follow the orders of someone who has never even seen real combat. But I told you, I'm not giving orders, we're partners. You say this, but the law remains. If you command me to do something, I must obey. This knowledge sits between us like a wall. Alex thought about this. What if I promise never to use that power? Promises are easily broken when survival is at stake. Then I guess I'll have to prove it to you, Alex said. Their first stop was a planet called Zerion 3, where a small colony of Kirillin's people had been hiding for decades. The planet was mostly desert, with strange red sand that shifted and moved like water. The colony was built inside a network of caves that connected to ancient ruins that contained the defensive systems they needed to activate. The entrance is hidden, Kirillin explained as their ship touched down. My people have survived here by staying invisible. As they walked across the red desert, Alex couldn't help but marvel at the landscape. The sand formed patterns that looked almost like writing, and in the distance, massive stone structures jutted up from the dunes like the bones of sleeping giants. Those are the old towers, Kirillin said, noticing his stare, built by my ancestors thousands of years ago. They contain weapons that could level entire cities, but the activation codes were lost long ago. Maybe not as lost as you think, Alex said, pulling out his scanner. These symbols in the sand, they're not random, they're pointing toward the towers. Kirillin stopped walking and looked where he was pointing. I see only wind patterns. Look closer. The way the sand has settled, the spacing between the ridges, it's deliberate. Someone or something has been maintaining these patterns for a very long time. They spent the next hour following the sand patterns, which led them to a hidden entrance. At the base of the largest tower, inside they found technology that was clearly ancient but still functioning. Walls covered in the same glowing symbols Alex had seen before, control panels that responded to touch, and in the center of it all, a massive crystal that pulsed within a light. I've never seen anything like this, Kirillin admitted, running her hand along one of the control panels. Even our eldest remember only stories of such places. Alex studied the symbols on the walls. Over the past week he had been learning to read them, and these told a clear story. This isn't just a weapon, it's a complete defense network. Look here, these symbols show how all the towers on this planet are connected. Activate one, and you activate them all. But how do we activate it? Kirillin asked. Alex examined the central crystal more closely. There were hand-shaped impressions around its base, or they weren't quite human-shaped or quite like Kirillin's hands either. I think it requires both of us. Your people's technology and human intuition working together. That's impossible. These systems were built long before your people even existed, were they? Alex asked. What if your ancestors knew humans would be involved somehow? What if they planned for this? Kirillin looked skeptical, but she placed her hand on one of the impressions. Alex did the same on another. The moment their hands touched the crystal, the entire chamber filled with light. Information flooded their minds, not in words, but in pure understanding. They saw the history of this planet, the purpose of the towers, and most importantly, how to activate the entire network. But there was more. They saw glimpses of other worlds, other hidden colonies, and the growing threat that was hunting them all. When the light faded, they were both breathing heavily. Did you see what I saw? Alex asked. The Vortark fleet, Kirillin whispered. They're not just attacking randomly. They're following some kind of pattern, hunting down specific locations, and they'll be here in 2 days, Alex added grimly. They activated the defense network just in time. When the Vortark ships arrived, expecting to find a helpless colony, they instead found themselves facing weapons that had been waiting for centuries to be used again. The battle was over in minutes, but their success on Zerion 3 was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, they traveled to world after world, always staying one step ahead of the Vortark fleet. Each ancient site they found was different, each puzzle more complex than the last. On the ice world of Novak Prime, they had to solve a riddle written in frozen light to unlock a shield generator that protected the entire planet. On the jungle world of Verdania, they worked together to navigate through traps that had been designed to stop invaders for thousands of years. With each success, Alex noticed that Kirillin was changing. She still complained about having to work with him, but her complaints became less frequent and less harsh. She started asking for his opinion instead of just telling him what to do. And sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, he caught her watching him with something that might have been respect. The real change came on their 4th mission, on a planet called Terminus Station. They were deep inside an ancient facility, trying to activate a communication array that would warn other colonies about Vortark movements. Alex was working on deciphering the control codes when he heard Kirillin shout a warning. Behind you. Alex spun around to see a security drone that had apparently been dormant for centuries suddenly coming to life. Its weapons were already charging, aimed directly at his chest. He had maybe 2 seconds before it fired, but before he could move, Kirillin was there, throwing herself between Alex and the drone. Her energy shield absorbed the blast, but the impact sent her flying across the room to hit the wall hard. Alex rushed to her side. She was unconscious, and there was purple blood on her forehead. The drone was charging for another shot. Alex looked around desperately for a weapon, but all he had was his archaeological tools. Then he remembered something Kirillin had taught him about her people's technology. It responded to intent as much as to touch. He placed his hands on the nearest control panel and focused all his will on shutting down the security system. To his amazement, it worked. The drone powered down just as Kirillin began to stir. What happened? She asked groggily. You saved my life, Alex said, helping her sit up. That thing would have killed me if you hadn't jumped in front of it. Kirillin looked confused. But the law says I must protect you. I had no choice. The law says you have to obey my orders. Alex corrected her. I never ordered you to risk your life for me. You chose to do that on your own. She stared at him for a long moment, and Alex could see something changing in her expression. The defensive walls she had built around herself were starting to crack. Perhaps, she said quietly, you are not what I expected. As they completed their mission on Terminus Station, Alex realized that something fundamental had shifted between them. They were no longer bound together by ancient law and mutual resentment. They were becoming something neither of them had expected. They were becoming friends, but their partnership was about to face its greatest test yet, because somewhere in the depths of space, the leader of the Vortok Empire had taken notice of their success, and he was planning something that would change everything. The fortress world of Keth Prime was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Massive walls of black stone rose from the planet's surface like ancient mountains, covered in weapon systems that had been waiting for centuries to be used. This was where Kirilin's people had made their final stand against the Vortok Empire, and where they would make it again. This place gives me the creeps, Alex muttered as their ship descended toward the fortress. The entire planet looked like one giant military base, with defensive towers stretching as far as the eye could see. It should, Kirilin replied, her voice heavy with memories. This is where my grandfather died fighting the Vortok, where thousands of my people gave their lives to buy time for the survivors to escape. They had been working together for 2 months now, and Alex had gotten used to the way Kirilina's skin patterns changed when she was emotional. Right now, they were a deep red, the color of grief and anger mixed together. We don't have to do this, Alex said. We could find another way. There is no other way, she said firmly. The Vortok fleet is only days behind us. If we can't activate the fortress defenses, they'll destroy every remaining colony in the sector. Alex nodded, understanding the weight of what they were facing. Over the past weeks, they had saved 7 different worlds, but each victory felt smaller as the Vortok forces grew larger. It was like trying to stop an ocean with a bucket. They landed near the fortress's main entrance. A massive gate carved with symbols that seemed to move and shift in the dim light. As they approached, Alex's scanner began picking up energy readings. From deep within the structure, there's something big down there, he said, checking his readings again, really big. The power signature is off the charts. The Heart of Storms, Kirilin explained. The most powerful weapon my people ever built. It was supposed to end the war, but they activated it too late. They made their way through corridors that felt more like the inside of a living creature than a building. The walls pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Alex found himself thinking about all the people who had walked these halls before them. All the warriors who had fought and died to protect their families. Kirilin, Alex said as they descended deeper into the fortress. Can I ask you something? Personal, you may ask. Whether I answer depends on the question. Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if the war had never happened? She was quiet for so long that Alex thought she wasn't going to answer. Finally, she spoke. I would have been a teacher. Before the war, that's what I wanted. To be, I wanted to show young ones the beauty of our history, the wisdom of our ancestors. You still could be, Alex said. After this is over, there may not be anyone left to teach. They reached the central chamber just as Alex's radio crackled to life. It was Jake, calling from their ship. Alex, you need to get back here now. We're picking up a massive energy signature approaching the planet. It's not like anything we've seen before. How long until it arrives? Alex asked. 20 minutes, maybe less. Alex looked at Kirilin. That's not enough time to figure out how to activate this place. Then we'll have to try something else, she said, but Alex could hear the uncertainty in her voice. That's when they heard the voice. It came from speakers hidden throughout the chamber, speaking in perfect English. Dr. Alex Rivera, we meet at last. The voice was deep and commanding, with an accent Alex couldn't place. Kirilin immediately drew her weapons, her skin patterns, flashing to bright orange, the color of extreme danger. Who are you? Alex called out. I am Warlord Nexus, Supreme Commander of the Vortek Empire. I have been watching your efforts with great interest. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber. The figure that appeared was tall and imposing, wearing armor that looked like it was made from liquid metal, but it was his face that made Alex's blood run cold. Despite the obvious alien features, there was something familiar about it. You're one of them, Alex said, realization dawning. You're one of Kirilin's people, very observant, Nexus replied with a cold smile. Yes, I am Keth, or rather, I was. before I learn the truth about our so-called noble civilization. Kirillin stepped forward, her weapons raised. You're a traitor. You betrayed your own people. I freed myself, Nexus corrected. Just as I freed the from the chains your people placed on them. What chains? Alex asked. Nexus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Has she not told you the whole truth about your precious binding law? About how her people used it to enslave entire civilizations? Alex felt a chill run down his spine. What are you talking about? The Vortok were once our servants, Nexus explained, bound by the same laws that now bind Kirillin to you. For 1,000 years, they caught our spears in ritual combat and served as our warriors, our workers, our property. That's not true, Kirillin said, but her voice lacked conviction, isn't it? Nexus challenged. Tell him about the Great Rebellion, Kira. Tell him how the Vortak rose up against their masters. Tell him how your people fought to keep them enslaved. Alex turned to look at Kirillin. Her skin patterns had gone completely white, something he had never seen before. Is this true? He asked quietly. It's complicated, she said, not meeting his eyes. It's simple, Nexus continued. Your people created a system of slavery and called it honor. They bound other species to serve them and called it law. The Vordak fought for their freedom, and for that, they were branded as criminals and hunted across the galaxy. Alex felt sick. So everything we've been fighting for, is the preservation of a system built on oppression, Nexus finished. But I have a solution. Release Kirillin from her bonds. Convince her people to abandon their ancient laws. Do this, and I will call off my forces. Refuse, and I will finish what should have been finished long ago. And if we agree, Alex asked, then the Vortek will finally be free to live their own lives, and the cycle of revenge will end. Alex looked around the chamber, his mind racing. Everything he thought he understood about this conflict had just been turned upside down. Were they really fighting to preserve a system of slavery? Had he been on the wrong side this entire time? You're lying, Kirillin said suddenly. You're twisting the truth. Am I? Nexus asked. Then explain to your human friend how the binding laws work. Tell him what happens to those who refuse to serve. Kirillin's silence was answer enough. I thought so, Nexus said. You have 1 hour to decide, Dr. Rivera. After that, my fleet will reduce this fortress to dust, and every Kethmarani colony in the sector will follow. The hologram disappeared, leaving Alex and Kirillin alone in the vast chamber. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Is it true? Alex asked finally. About the slavery. Kirillin sat down heavily on a nearby stone bench. The laws are old, very old. They come from a time when my people were different, when we believed that strength gave us the right to rule over others, but you still follow them. We follow them because they are all we have left, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. After the war, after losing our homeworld, the old laws were the only thing that kept us together as a people. Alex sat down beside her. Even if those laws are wrong, I don't know what's right anymore, she admitted. I was raised to believe the laws were sacred, that they represented the best of what we could be, but now, now you're seeing them through different eyes. They sat in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Alex spoke. There has to be another way, some solution that doesn't involve choosing between slavery and genocide. Like what? Alex stood up and began pacing around the chamber. You mentioned something before, back when we first met, something about changing the laws instead of just following them. The right of mutual choosing, Kirillin said slowly. But it's just a legend. No one has attempted it in over 1,000 years. What would it do? If successful, it would transform the binding laws from tools of domination into bonds of partnership. Instead of master and servant, there would be equals. Choosing to work together, Alex felt a spark of hope. That could work. That could change everything. If it's even possible, Kirillin said, and if we can survive long enough to attempt it. Above them, they could hear the distant rumble of approaching ships. The Vortok fleet had arrived, and their hour was almost up. Then we better get started, Alex said, offering Kirillin his hand. Partners, for the first time in days. She smiled. Partners. The ground shook as the first Vortok ships began their attack on the fortress. Alex could hear explosions echoing through the stone corridors as ancient defense systems came to life. But he knew they wouldn't hold for long. The real battle was happening right here in this chamber, where he and Kirillin were racing against time to find the ritual that could change everything. Kirillin pointed to a section of the wall where symbols glowed brighter than the rest. The instructions for the right of mutual choosing. But Alex, you need to understand, this ritual has never been successfully completed. Everyone who tried it either failed or died in the attempt. Alex studied the glowing symbols, his mind working to translate their meaning. Over the months of working with Kirillin, he had become surprisingly good at reading her people's ancient language. What he saw made his heart sink. "This is going to hurt, isn't it?" he said. "More than hurt," Kirillin replied grimly. "The ritual requires both participants to give up something essential about themselves. For me, it means releasing all the power I've held as a warrior, all the status that comes from being bound to someone. For you, for me, it means giving up the right to ever command another person." Alex finished, reading the symbols. "And if either of us holds back, even a little bit, the ritual will destroy us both." Another explosion rocked the fortress, this one closer than before. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the lights flickered ominously. "We're running out of time," Alex said. "How long do we have before they break through?" "Minutes, maybe." "Less," Kirillin replied, checking her weapons one last time. "But Alex, there's something else you need to know. Even if we succeed, even if we transform the binding laws, it won't stop Nexus. He's not just fighting for freedom anymore, he's consumed by revenge." As if summoned by her words, the chamber's main doors burst open. But it wasn't Vortak soldiers who entered, it was a group of Kirillin's own people, led by an elderly warrior whose armor bore the marks of countless battles. "Master Veltar," Kirillin gasped, recognizing her old teacher. "What are you doing here, stopping you from making the greatest mistake in our people's history?" The old warrior replied, his voice hard as stone. "You would destroy everything our ancestors built, everything we've fought to preserve." "What we've built is wrong," Kirillin shot back. "The binding laws turned us into oppressors. They created the very enemy that destroyed our homeworld." "The laws kept us strong," Veltar roared. "They gave us order, purpose, unity. Without them, we are nothing but scattered refugees hiding in the dark." More of Kirillin's people entered the chamber, their weapons drawn. Alex counted at least a dozen, all looking like they'd rather fight than talk. "You don't understand," Alex said, stepping forward. "We're not trying to destroy your culture. We're trying to save it. The right of mutual choosing could give you something better than the old laws." "Silence," human Veltar snapped. "This is not your concern. You are the problem. You and all the other outsiders who think they can change what has worked for thousands of years." That's when the far wall exploded inward, and Vortak warriors poured through the breach. At their head was Nexus himself, no longer just a hologram but physically present and terrifying. His liquid metal armor reflected the chamber's light like a dark mirror. "How touching," Nexus said, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "The oppressors fight among themselves while their victims come to claim justice." The chamber erupted into chaos. Kirillin's people turned to face the Vortok, old hatreds flaring to life. Energy weapons fired in all directions, filling the air with deadly light. Alex found himself trapped in the middle, dodging blasts from both sides. "This has to stop," he shouted, but no one was listening. The fighting was too intense, the anger too deep. That's when Alex realized what he had to do. The ritual chamber had a central platform where the right of mutual choosing was supposed to take place. If he could reach it, if he could start the ritual even in the middle of this battle, maybe he could force everyone to see what was really at stake. "Kirillin," he called out, "the platform, we have to try it now." She looked at him like he was insane. In the middle of a battle, the ritual requires perfect concentration. One mistake and we're both dead. We're all dead anyway if this keeps going, Alex replied, ducking as another energy blast scorched the wall behind him. Kirillin hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Together they fought their way toward the center of the chamber. Using her warrior skills and his knowledge of the ancient defenses to clear a path, they reached the platform just as Nexus broke through the line of defenders. "You're too late," the Vortak leader snarled, raising his weapon. "I will end this once and for all." "Wait," Alex shouted, placing his hands on the ritual stones. "Look around you, Nexus. Look at what you've become." "I've become free," Nexus replied. But there was something uncertain in his voice. "No," Alex said, feeling the ancient power of the stones beginning to respond to his touch. "You've become exactly what you fought against. You're using fear and violence to force others to obey you. How is that different from the old binding laws?" Kirillin placed her hands on the stones beside Alex's. Immediately, light began to pour from the platform, and everyone in the chamber stopped fighting to stare. "The ritual," Veltar whispered. "They're actually attempting it. This is your chance." Alex called out to everyone in the chamber. "All of you, Vortek, Kethmarani, it doesn't matter. You can choose something different. You can choose to work together instead of fighting forever." The light from the platform grew brighter, and Alex felt something changing inside him. The ritual was demanding that he give up any desire to control others, any need to be in charge. It was harder than he had expected. Letting go of power, even power he didn't want, was like tearing out a part of himself. Beside him, Kirillin was struggling too. He could see the pain in her face as she released centuries of warrior pride. All the training that had taught her to dominate or be dominated. I can't, she gasped. It's too much. Yes, you can, Alex said, squeezing her hand. We're doing this together. Remember, partners. The words seemed to give her strength. The light from the platform pulsed once, twice, then exploded outward, in a wave that washed over everyone in the chamber. When the light faded, something fundamental had changed. Alex could feel it, not just in himself, but in the very air around them. The ancient binding laws that had governed Kirillin's people for millennia had been transformed into something new. It's done, Kirillin said wonderingly. I can feel it. The laws have changed. No one can be bound against their will anymore. The choice to serve, to fight, to follow it all has to be freely given. Nexus staggered as the change hit him. What have you done? We've given everyone what you said. You want it, Alex replied. Freedom, real freedom, the freedom to choose your own path. Around the chamber, weapons were being lowered. Vortak and Kethmaroni warriors looked at each other with something that might have been understanding instead of hatred. The war doesn't have to continue, Kirillin said, addressing both sides. We can choose peace. We can choose to build something better than what came before. And if some of us choose to keep fighting, one of the Vortok warriors asked, then that's your choice, Alex said, but you'll be fighting alone, because the rest of us are choosing something different. Nexus looked around the chamber, seeing his followers wavering. The certainty that had driven him for so long was cracking. This changes nothing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. It changes everything, Veltar said quietly. The old warrior had put down his weapons and was staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. For the first time in my life, I can choose who I serve. And I choose to serve no one but my own conscience. One by one, the warriors in the chamber began to lay down their weapons, not in surrender, but in recognition that the old ways of thinking no longer applied. What happens now? Someone asked. Alex looked at Kirillin and she looked back at him. The bond between them had changed too. She was no longer bound to serve him, but she had chosen to stay by his side anyway. Now we build something new, Alex said. Together, all of us. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But for the first time, we have the chance to create something based on choice instead of force. And if it doesn't work, Nexus asked, then we'll try again, Kirillin said. Because that's what free people do, they keep trying until they get it right. As the battle raged on outside the fortress, inside the chamber, former enemies began talking to each other. It would take time to heal the wounds of centuries, but for the first time in anyone's memory, there was hope. Alex and Kirillin walked out of the chamber together, no longer bound by ancient law but connected by something stronger, the choice to stand together in building a better future behind them. Nexus stood alone among the ritual stones, finally understanding what true freedom really meant. For the first time in decades, he had a choice to make that wasn't driven by anger or revenge. The war was ending. Not with victory or defeat, but with the recognition that there was a third option, the choice to start over and do better, in the galaxy beyond. Other species who had heard the story of the human and the warrior who changed the ancient laws began to wonder if they too could choose.